Okay, welcome to this really impromptu surprise live stream where we're going to be talking about Cubase 15. And the reason why I decided to do this stream is because I saw this came out. I've been watching some videos. And as I was watching and learning about what's in their new version, it just kind of like occurred to me that it is very similar in some ways to Logic Pro, according to me. Now, there's going to be some Cubase users that are like, no, it's nothing like Logic Pro. And there certainly Cubase has some really impressive, powerful features, things that we'll talk about that I wish we had in Logic Pro. However, the things that came out in Cubase 15, for the most part, felt very familiar. And I believe that most of these workstations are getting closer and closer together, and now becomes less of you have to have one to do something. Instead, you get to pick the one that matches you better, right? And so we're going to be talking about this a little bit. I want to go through some of these new features, talk about which ones I wish we would get in Logic Pro coming up. And we'll talk about some of the ones that I was shocked are just coming to Cubase 15 for the first time. There's a few of these that I was just like, I had no idea. Now, I used to be a power Nuendo user for a number of years early on in my career when I was living in North Carolina and working with artists from Tennessee, Nashville area. It was a big program back then. Nuendo was, kind of a buzzword amongst a lot of engineers down there at that time. And I think now, from what I'm hearing from a lot of my friends in the Nashville area, for certain things, Logic has actually picked up and is doing a lot. And so it's kind of interesting with these two. Cubase, of course, isn't Nuendo. It's really aimed more at the music producers rather than maybe the post-production. But Cubase Pro has a lot of amazing features. So let's talk about these 15 things that they're announcing. And we'll dig in a little deeper than some of those, of course, but that's where we're going to start. First and foremost, they have this thing called the pattern sequencer, and now they're touting it as the ability to do make melodies, melodic patterns, expressive melodic ones with monophonic and polyphonic modes, step input, custom scales, and then a few other features with it. Now, of course, in Logic, we have something that is nearly identical. And I hope that the features that they have on top of that, than what we have in Logic, that we'll get at some point. But we have, for instance, if I were to click up here and we could just go into our step sequencer, and we have our patterns. We can use this much in the exact same way with notes. We can draw on in monophonic or polyphonic. We can step things in. What we don't have is the set of features that deal with some of the patterns and the randomization of adding things in. So let's go back to that for a second. You can see those. Well, you really probably can't see them on the screen now, but they have a whole generator area where you can add in shapes. There's not a ton of them, and there's some randomization. And so besides that, this feels like a very similar feature to me. Both of them have nuanced differences, but cool. This would be one of the things that I would want in any workstation that I work in. This type of pattern sequencer, because I feel like this is such a nice way to work and do certain types of music that you should have one of those. And not every workstation has one, frankly. So cool. That's a great new feature. I had thought that and if any of you are Cubase users and you're like, well, we've had this, it's just they've added on the melodic part, let me know in the chat, because I haven't used Cubase in a couple of years, although I do use Cubasis on my iPad somewhat regularly. Of course, this isn't something that has, but cool. Number 2 it would be the next gen articulation. Now, Steinberg products, Cubase and Nuendo, have long been known for the articulation functionality pieces to this. Particularly, one thing that I've always been jealous of in Logic is that you can use the score editor and type in the articulations in the score and it converts it into MIDI data. That alone, if you're a composer or doing a lot with big libraries, is important and really handy. We don't have that, but we have some similarities in Logic. And what we don't have is the connection of all the pieces together to do it exactly the same way. And let me demonstrate what I mean for a second. So say we use our strings. We have all of the articulations built into this instrument. And once we're using this, then we can actually use our articulation sets to do something kind of similar. But we have to actually load up in many cases. You'll see I do have some of the East-West Hollywood instrument articulation sets. But let's do the strings, and we'll do the singer-songwriter, and I will load up the singer-songwriter here. If you load this up from the library, it all gets loaded automatically. If you load the instrument separately, then they don't. But now, say that I'm here in my piano roll. So first step of this, right? Say I just want to, right? I'm just making some selections. I can now say I want this to be any of these, and all of the notes that I have selected will change to that articulation. So great. That's the first piece of the puzzle, is having the ability to assign articulations to each individual MIDI note. Cubase obviously takes that way further. With Logic, I believe we have this. Let me just double check this real quick. Where this is how long it's been. Score. Maybe it's in the project settings. MIDI. The MIDI meaning. MIDI meaning. There we go. Here, if we put any of these symbols in our score on the thing, it can actually change the velocity and the length of that. So we actually do have some score articulations in Logic, but it's such like a basic amount that I don't know, I've never used it. I had to look for it just in my brain to even find it. So could we? Yes, Logic has some of the functionality to this, but they've never developed it. And for some reason, most third-party software libraries don't really do a lot with this with Logic, even though they could. I don't know if that's because Apple tends to set the bar high for third-party people. They typically don't care that much about third-party companies. They've shown, at least with their actions. I'm sure they'd disagree if they were to talk to me in person. But Cubase wins clearly with the next gen articulation stuff. But I'm not doing that kind of work in there myself. Okay, cool. They did announce as number 3, stem extraction. I'm sure a lot of Cubase users were super pumped about this, although it's like the first version of the stem extractor that Logic got, where they just have the bass, the drums, the vocals. Now, if you do this in Logic, say I'm going to pull this out, we actually have the vocal, the drums, the bass, the guitar, the piano, and the other, plus the ability to do submixes and things like that. Okay, so great. They have stem extraction probably at 15.1 or 15.2. They'll add more of that in there. I'm not surprised that this is just coming. I think everybody's trying to add it on. Some companies are doing it faster than others. If Logic has it, then Cubase should certainly have it as well, but they just got it. This one is actually like not a big feature, but it's a nice feature. When you go to automation mode, it's going to pull open a short list of all the things you've recently touched. I think that's genius. We'll probably never get it in Logic, but it's really clever to add that kind of nuance if you're doing a lot of automation things. Cool. The new hub, I'm not going to talk that much about. The new hub is kind of like the place where projects start, and you can do cool things like listen to a little bit of each project. It's just kind of clever stuff. It's really seems like a really good update. We've gotten similar updates in Logic with our new project dialog. Nothing fancy for sure in Logic. The writing room synths, cool. They added some more instruments. Maybe the benefits of these are that they're simple and accessible, and you could use them right off the shelf without having to dig a lot. But no other software really beats Logic's collection of synthesizers that come with it. Some of them are like right up there along the same level, but Logic has every type of synthesis, every type of synthesizer, easy ones, hard ones, ones that are strange. So cool that they got these accessible synths, but at the same time, it's like, how many more new synthesizer plugins does the world need? The answer is zero, because we don't need more. I would love to see people use all of the synths they already have in their arsenal to their fullest, which rarely happens, in my opinion. Next is something that I'm going to talk about with great jealousy, because the modulators in Cubase, the whole system of modulators is something I wish Logic would be able to do. We have modulators, right? We can do modulation on instrument tracks. And instrument tracks are the only place we can easily do this. Here's our modulator. And it's a great modulator. It has the basic wave shapes, including the symmetry options and similarity option. And then all of the different rates and all the tools with this. Plus, it's paired with an envelope tool. They can work together. They can work separately. They can attach to anything below them on this track in this chain, and you can do multiple. So I can have as many MIDI effects slots as I want. All the modulators can be loaded, and you can attach one to the next to create very complex modulation. But in Cubase, you can do this with more than just an instrument track. And so you're able to put this down in their row of modulators and attach them to various things, and one can control multiple things across the software. It's like I wish we would expand what we can do with our modulator in Logic to do a fraction of what the modulators here do, and that would be great. So, yay, they're expanding this out. This isn't a new concept in Cubase, but they're expanding it out with 6 new modulators, including random generator, sample and hold, wavefold, LFO, and it says, and more. So cool, right? They're taking a good idea and making it better, which is what we're hoping for Logic, taking good ideas that they have and making them better. Ultra Shaper, dynamics processor, pretty much every application, it feels like these days, has some sort of Ultra Shaper of some sort or another. Cool. Pitch shifter, real-time creative or corrective pitch shifting with format, preservation, saturation modes. Awesome. I don't know. I don't think Logic can do plus or minus 24 semitones, though. I think we're limited less than that, so that's cool. But we have format shifting and preservation. We have all that stuff. Everybody has. I mean, these are great for Cubase. I was thinking, I'm surprised that they didn't already have these, but not a big deal. Cool. Better late than never. More kits, more hits is what they're calling this next one. Obviously, every update that we get with Logic, we get new hits and kits. So that's nothing special, but it's cool. They have 30 brand new chord pad presets. This equivalent of that in Logic would be the ability to do our chord trigger, I'm assuming, where we have all of our chords for multi, guitar voicings, keyboard voicings, parallel chords, and then extended harmonies, intervals, and triads. But they're breaking theirs down more by style of music. So this is one place. But the other thing that we have, of course, is the chord track and the session players, which can interpret those chords. I'm going to clear my throat. Haven't talked much today, apparently. So cool. Chord pads. Everybody needs more chords that they could use instead of learning how to do them. Here's where it gets really interesting. And Gina is already talking about this, I think, in the comments, unless I'm mistaken. Discover the vocal revolution. This says in beta, and it's called Omnivocal. And it says experience natural vocals that push the limits of vocal synthesis. The simple interface and seamless workflow make creating expressive results effortless and inspiring every time. Check this out. I'm not going to watch the video. I don't want to get copyright claimed. But this is a really interesting vocal processor. And we don't have anything like this in Logic. So be jealous. That's what I'm going to do, is just be jealous for a few minutes. But you can do really cool creative things with this. And maybe it's leading towards more AI vocals and vocal creation in Cubase. So we'll see. We'll see where this leads. But go to the website, check out the video if you're curious more about this beast. This is really exciting. This is right along the lines of what I would hope we would get in Logic. I don't know why this wasn't like listed towards the top. Maybe because it's in beta, maybe because it doesn't work great in real life. I don't know. But it's interesting. This is one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing more about. Okay, those are all the main things. Is that a upgrade to Cubase 15? Is that worth all of it? Probably. I mean, we're looking at new sounds, new instruments, new effects, new functionality. I mean, that's quite a bit of stuff, right? So good on Cubase for developing and releasing a really solid upgrade to their software. Here's a bunch of the smaller stuff, and here's where some of the stuff I was like, scratching my head so much. One was the volume and pan on the track headers. So I was like, wait, okay. They didn't have volume and pan knobs and sliders on their track headers. And that's okay. I'm sorry, guys, that you've been using this software for 15 versions and always had to open your mixer to do things. Like, wow, I can't tell you how many times I just grabbed the volume and pan right there and used them. But that's cool. That's cool. They get it now. Better late than never. Let's see. Oh, they also got full screen mode for Mac. I guess Windows users could already go full screen, but now they get to do true full screen. That was something else that got added in Cubase 15. Thought nobody ever that was possible. Who doesn't have full screen mode already? Better late than never. They refined some notation things. Cool. I know there are people who use the notation in these programs and really care about it, but I would guess that the vast majority of users do not. And then they're putting in things like stem extraction for people who don't even know what notation is. So interesting. They're really splitting. That's what Logic is doing as well. They're trying to dumb down the software, but also not upset all of their advanced users. That's really happening across the board with a lot of software applications right now. But good. I mean, they're playing the game that everybody's playing. From bass to leads, jumpstart your creativity with new pattern bank presets for bass lines. We have some of those as well. So cool. Groove Agent SE6. That's awesome. That's one of their big instruments. And then hot swap samples. I didn't fully understand because I'm not using the media bay or hot swappable things, but I thought we already can do that with like our drum machine designer or something like that, or um, quick sampler. Scaling, this was kind of cool. You can scale stock effect plugins. Well, they're now supported, but your whole interface, you can scale it up and down so you can zoom in or out without having to change your screen resolution. Pinch to zoom. If you have a Mac OS trackpad, you can now pinch to zoom. Of course, in Logic, we've been able to do that forever. That's like an Apple thing, though. And then bounce in a flash. I don't know fully about that, but I'm assuming it's a little bit more than just like share song to voice memos or something. It's a streamlined thing. There's a button right on the interface. It looks cool. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. So say you're one of my viewers who uses Logic and you thought, you know what? That's finally it. Those are the things I was waiting for before switching over to Cubase. I'm going to do it now. And you click on the Buy Cubase. It is $580 for the full Pro version. You don't have to get the Pro version. We're going to look at the other versions in a second. But that is the cost of Cubase Pro 15 that has all of the features. And all these features are the ones that make it compete with something like Logic Pro. Who's gonna skip their car payment this month? Not buy groceries, right? That's the question. That's a big chunk of money. Cool, but you don't have to get that one. You don't have to. Let's do the comparison for a moment. We have inside this Cubase Pro 15, Cubase Artist 15, Cubase Elements 15, Cubase AI 15, Cubase LE 15. And they're different. The track amounts are unlimited for the top two and limited, and then how many virtual instruments and libraries and effects you get and can run. Side chaining doesn't exist in the bottom two. The pattern sequencer doesn't exist in the bottom three. And the fact some of these like down here are just bundled with things. But the one that doesn't come with all the features and is fairly limited, Elements 15, is $99. And then the artist version is $329, and then the pro version is $579. So then you can actually see, which of the features. They're very comprehensive here. If I'm doing sequencing, for instance, you'll see that up until the pattern sequencer and the drum track and the list editor and the in-place editor and the MPE support, you could get away with, the third version. But you have to have the pro version to have tempo detection panel and even global track. So things that we take for granted as being in the, the $199 version of Logic, the only version of Logic. That's not true. The only Mac version of Logic. We have the iPad version of Logic, which you can pay $5 a month for and get a lot of these things. And so, let's see, I want to see. Audio Warp Quantize is in the top two versions. Okay, but audio alignment is not. I mean, it's like you got to be careful. If you're like, I really want this software and these are the things, then you got to be really careful with what you're paying for. The $580 one, which does have, by the way, an upgrade. If you are upgrading, it's only $100. And if you're a student, then you get the whole thing for $360. Cool. But that's a significant amount of money if you can get those same features in other places. So what in Cubase 15 couldn't you live without? I would love if we had some Cubase users on here. Tell me in the chat which things, but I know that YouTube doesn't usually show my videos to Cubase users. We're a good secret away from them, so they don't know what they're missing. They're living in this the walled garden and thinking they've got everything. And then they find out that the panning and volume controls on track headers have been in every other workstation station since the beginning of time, and they go, oh, sad. Samuel Lindemann says, I expect the next Logic Pro update to be meh. So I expressed that viewpoint before the last one, which was 6 months ago, 5 months and 2 weeks. And I said, this is kind of meh. But some people really raged at me about that, saying, no, this is one of the best updates ever. What did we get in the last version of Logic Pro? Let's see the complete list. We got the stem splitter enhancements. That's the expanded stem splitter. We got the search for and selected tracks. I have not used that one yet. We got some new sound packs, of course. And then long faders in the mixer. We got some stuff. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't great, but this wasn't a 15. It was a 11.2. And so we did not get like a major point. When we went from a Logic 10.8 to Logic 11, it was a much bigger thing. So, but these smaller point ones are the ones that come to us like once or twice a year. And we're expecting 11.3 or 11.3 is what I'm guessing. And when we get it, it will probably be less than what Cubase got for 15. I don't know. I'm not expecting a bunch of new instruments and new effects and new browser and new AI tools and a new vocal engine. We're just not going to get all that stuff. There's no way that we're going to get that in just 6 months. They're going to make us wait for it over time. Let me catch up with some comments. Really, this time Cubase was disappointing. Imagine that I use it since the Atari days. I will not upgrade. Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of these things that came are already in other places. But I'm excited for the vocal thing. That seems really interesting to learn more about. And of course, if you're doing anything with notation and sequencing, then the articulations in Cubase are unmatched. They're unrivaled, in my opinion. Ian Wright says, the vocal plugin is nowhere near Synthesizer V, but I hope it will get better as time goes by. Always true. But you can always use Synthesizer V as well, even in Cubase. You know what I mean? It's like not limited. Don says, it would be so awesome if they finally update the sample browser, smoother grid like Ableton, splice integration, and in scale mode update. Cool. Maida says, sorry, just joined. Articulation is something that would be great in Logic. We looked at what Logic currently does have in its very cave-like current state. It's been around there for a long time. We actually do have some articulation abilities, even with the score editor, but they're so basic and they're not implemented well. It would take somebody to make some true implementations and program into templates for me to actually feel like they could work. But nothing like Cubase. I mean, Cubase is just the best with that. Let's see, around 5 to 6 months ago, Ricky's announced that he started working for Apple, Logic, GarageBand. I'm curious, what he'll contribute to the next big update. Me too. So I don't know. And some of those hires, are kind of related to that, but you'd be surprised how quickly everyone gets pulled into the Apple Music thing instead of the Logic Pro and GarageBand, because those are like big money makers. Apple Music and its movie sales. I mean, those are That's where the money in Apple is, and apps, of course. But that intellectual property, not so much of the media variety, not so much of the Logic Pro variety. So, they bring these people on. They're like, we're hoping you can help us with Logic. We know that it's a heaping pile of code that has been around for a long time, and anytime you make one change, it screws up 16 other things. Cool. So can you help out our music team, and let's brainstorm some ways to like sell more music. Let's do animated album art in the music app, which they have. At some point, they added animated album art. So a team had to like go through and develop that and then work with all the artist teams to start making this and propose things to famous artists so that they would do it. So, there's like a whole army of people working on album art that's animated and not necessarily working on, MIDI implementation inside Logic. Not that they're the same people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, think about all the resources that go into some other parts. But we'll see if anything happens in the next versions. I'm not in any rush with Logic. I've given up my rush attitude because as I've used other software, I keep on remembering how good Logic and Cubase, this update to 15, they didn't need it. None of that stuff, except for maybe the volume and the panning on the track headers. None of it was needed. All of this stuff is extra. It's so that they hit the news cycle, right? They want to remind people that they exist. And then if you're like, ooh, Cubase is looking good, let me go buy it. You see the $580 price tag if you're not upgrading. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's pricey. But it comes with a lot of stuff. Cubase has always been one of the better workstations, in my opinion. It's like high class in a lot of ways. And engineers who really know what they want and use their tools use Cubase and Nuendo. There's a lot of great engineers that do, but it's just not for everybody. I was working in a studio in Prague this past summer. A great studio, awesome equipment, and I had to bring Logic in on my laptop because their main rig was all Cubase. And it was like a good setup. But they're bringing in clients. They have the money. They're going to upgrade whenever they feel like they can take a break, or they'll test it out on a second computer until all their current things are through the pipeline, and then they can switch over in a time of break or holiday or something. They're not going to upgrade to 15 on day one. That would be insanity for a professional studio to do that. Let's see. Samuel says, reimagining the built-in instruments and effects with modernized UIs that are more inspiring to use would be a good start, as well as options to manage the sound library. Yeah, so the sound library has to change in Logic. And I think that they're doing a better job in Cubase. I'm going to always tie it back to that today because that's what we're talking about. I think they're doing a better job in there. But just about that point you're talking about, I don't know if they ever will. Some of those ones. So there's this thing in music with software. Backwards compatibility is still something that people care about. Some people care about it more than others. So we have all these old instruments, right? I remember being in college and someone saying the world has changed. And this software synth is an example of the revolution that is taking place, the ES1. The ES1. Brrr, this thing's a beast, actually. It sounds great. It sounded great even then. And yet here we still are with this really bright green and blue and low contrast bottom section, although the contrast I think is maybe slightly better than it used to be. And so this instrument, they're never going to do an update on it. They're going to leave this in here and I mean, forever. Partly for backwards compatibility, um, partly as a museum piece. But this thing, back when I was in school, so that would have, the semester I remember people talking about this was spring 2001. And it was talked about with reverence and how amazing this industry was going to be. And it sat on a computer right next to this amazing modular synthesizer, all analog. And students were like, I'm going to use the ES1. That's funny. It's funny to me, probably not to anybody else. Ian says they killed off VST2 support for Cubase 15. That's one area that I'm not anti changing this. We have VST3 obviously out there. Logic Pro doesn't even have VST at all support. They just do AU, audio unit. And so that's fine. Good, cool. I mean, we have all kinds of issues with these formats. You want new formats because they can do new things. That's a good thing. You have companies which have old plugins, which are maybe VST2, or there's free plugins floating around, and they're just VST2. And if you kill off a format and you can't use some of the plugins you really want, either you don't upgrade or you just admit defeat and move on to other plugins, which I'm a huge proponent of. I think that old plugins cause issues. And every time I have someone, I made a video recently about upgrading to the newest operating system. And somebody got on the chat and was really upset at me for encouraging it. I never encouraged it, by the way. But they got really mad at me because they're like, my whole job is to help people with old plugins continue to use them. And I'm like, time out. Time out. Stop encouraging people to use those. There's no plugin in the universe that's like 20 years old or 15 years old that somebody absolutely has to use. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Welcome to software. It continues to move forward. We continue to adapt. It's a luxury when we get to use old plugins. And actually, one of the things I like about Logic, if I click on like my audio effects, you'll see down the bottom, hold on, I'll click on, I think it's Option click. When I hold Option and click, it brings up my legacy folder and all of my old effects that I, at one point loved. My DJ EQ, my fat EQ, my high cut, all that stuff is in here. Gold Verb, Groove Shifter, Guitar Amp Pro, all that stuff is still included in here. You just have to hold the Option key to go into the legacy mode. And so it's like, yeah, that's nice that they're offering those as a backwards compatibility option, but we don't need any of them. Anybody in the chat, name me one plugin that is incompatible with your system that you wish that you could still use. I would love to know the list. I mean, wish is different than need, but wish, let me know. The legacy plugins are not preset in Logic Pro for iPad, so they will move or less have to go at some point. Yeah. And as I've said many times, my personal viewpoint is that the Logic Pro for iPad is the next version of Logic that we're going to get. When that one becomes a little bit more feature rich and has more of the stuff that they're expecting, one day we're going to wake up and have that one be the only version of Logic. And so yay for that. So we're going to lose the environment. We'll lose legacy plugins and a lot of other things that maybe we're used to. And then a couple years after that, we'll all have forgotten about the old version, and we'll just see that on on Reddit when people dream about the old days of Logic Pro 11 for Mac. Don says, do you think that Apple will ever catch up regarding giving people regular, decent news updates for their software? I mean, competitors are teasing new products in their all their socials. Why not on Logic? So I have a theory about this too. My theory is based a little bit in reality. a part of reality that I can't talk about, because when you get emails from Apple and they say don't talk about this, then you don't talk about it. I can't even talk about that. Um, but I don't like the Logic team. I have very strong feelings about some of them. Um, I think that they have some sort of complex. First of all, Apple, the company that it is, with all of the stuff it has, is always getting leaks of their information. Right now, Logic is not one that gets a lot of leaks because it's nobody cares. Most average humans don't give a crap about Logic leaks, right? But as a company, they're very secretive to prevent that kind of thing. So they work in very tight, um, constricted communication things. They did, before Logic 11 came out, they gave us like 2 weeks notice. That was the first time that I could remember in a very long time that they gave us advance warning of new things coming out. That was a really good day on this channel. I think we had like 50,000 people on a live stream over the period of an afternoon. So cool. But there's something they think is that we want the mystery, the surprise. They want us to feel like, for those of you who celebrate Christmas, they want you to feel like it's Christmas morning and you're getting presents and you don't know what's in it. And so there's this like mentality that they don't need to tell us what's coming in advance. They do often keep a very regular schedule of updates, though. They try. Again, unforeseen things that happen when coding. They don't always get to do it exactly when they want to. But the last few feature-rich updates have been about 6 months apart. 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. And then they do 2 months or 3 months in between. They'll do like little maintenance upgrades, right? And so 6 months. We're now, everybody's updating right now. It feels like Reason just came out with something, Luna just came out with something, Cubase just came out with something, Ableton relatively recently. Maybe they're going to do something else big coming up, but they're pretty consistent. Studio One, I mean, everybody's doing something right now. This is that time of year when we get stuff, and then we go into the holidays and then like big sales in the late fall. It comes after new computers, new phones, new iPads, and then we get some new software stuff, and everybody goes into the holidays feeling just warm and fuzzy about Apple as the mothership that graciously graced our lives with its presence. I don't work for Apple, you can tell, but I do. I love Logic, and I think the new 15 from Cubase, except for one or two things, is just doing what the others are doing. They're looking at the well-established. I mean, Cubase is well-established. It's version 15, but I think still that Logic has a bigger user base, has more users, and even though it's now owned by a big company, Cubase is, I mean, it's still a smaller brand in some ways. I'm trying to say all this so that Cubase users watching this don't just like curse my name, because I'm not. It's not meant poorly. I think Cubase is great, but what we saw is, for a long time, Logic, once it got bought by Apple, was really pushing the boundaries in some ways. They came from a really innovative company before that, but Apple pushed it and has added a lot of things over the years because they could. They have the capital to do it. And then like Studio One came out, and every version of Studio One since it came out has gotten closer and closer and closer to Logic. They added all the spatial stuff. They added a lot of the instruments and stuff. They do things somewhat better than Logic in some cases. The drag and drop ecosystem, the mastering portion of the project. I mean, they just do some things really cool. But lately, they've just been adding things, and it looks more and more like Logic. Cubase just did an update that makes me think that people are looking over their shoulders and saying, let's add some of the stuff that we know people from Logic really wanted. Pro Tools has always, it was kind of a standard at the beginning, and then they started saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't just make this for professional post-production studios and recording studios. Let's add some of the music creation stuff. And they look over and they're like, ooh, what's Logic and Cubase and Studio One doing? Luna just added a bunch of things that Logic can do. I mean, it's like they're all getting closer and closer together. But right this moment, aside from a few key features in Logic that I wish it could do, Logic is at the top of the triangle. It just is. And that's not like it's better. Nope. If you want to do like live music production and loop-based things, then you'd be insane not to use Ableton, which has a lot of creative tools. If you're doing... if you have like a universal audio hardware unit and you're just doing straight band recording, then sure, use Luna. I mean, it's like I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying it has all of the features. It has so many of them. And what do none of these applications have, right? What do none of them have? I think things like Suno with its new kind of workstation online with all the AI stuff. I mean, that's the thing that none of these old workstations are doing. Nobody's willing to add in or has found a way or can afford to add in like true AI integration into their workstations. I mean, maybe they want to, I don't know. Maybe they feel like it might alienate people. I don't know. Luna, who's like a nobody on the workstation stage, they're still off on the side. They just added some what they called AI features in the past year, where you could like talk to the workstation and have it record for you. Really basic stuff, and they got so much hate mail about it. I mean, because they said that they added the AI thing. Logic gets hate mail for the session players, even though they're not AI. That's stupid to say that those are AI. That's just like smart sequencing with a cool interface. Oh, I'm going to catch up. Keisha says, sometimes I open up an old song and legacy plugins like Battery 3 will not open. That's the only time when I need them. That's so true. Joe Pass says, no summing tracks. Cubase sucks. I mean, what are summing tracks anyway? I mean, the mastering assistant in Logic is essentially just that. Samuel says, what I don't like about Apple is that when report software issues, it's a black hole. Most other companies reply, yeah, they don't care. They don't care about you personally. I do think they listen to a certain degree, but it's like they don't, like their bedside manner is not what they're known for. They want you to think that somehow they've earned the right not to have to. Hey, Placidon. Another comment, the problem with Logic Team is that they have to develop 3 software. That hold on. We did a video, was it yesterday 2 days ago, about GarageBand. They just released the first update to GarageBand in over a year, and it had like 15 little teeny bug fixes. There's no team developing GarageBand right now, as far as I can tell. However, the Logic for the Mac and Logic for the iPad are 2 distinct different pieces of software. And yet, I think we're going to be remedied of that at some point in the near future. We're going to have one version. It'll be the iPad version for both. Midas says the Cubase stems feature is where Logic was a year ago, but articulation, attack, and ARA support are the things that would make me look. Problem is I've been using Logic in version 1 notator. Yeah, notator. Oh, I love those. I've been using Logic for a long time too. And oof. It's like everyone. I've done this on the channel. I just went and looked at Luna and Reason again recently, because every once in a while they do something that I'm like, oh, that would be so great, and I can't. Nothing, nothing feels quite as natural to me. I can work through Logic Session. I can find all the issues. I can do my mix. I've got cool interfaces and control surfaces. It's like I think I'm stuck with Logic for the time being, but it doesn't mean I can't look at a different piece of software every once in a while. Don't tell my wife I said that. I'm just kidding. Cool. Well, this is we've been going for 50 minutes ranting about all of this stuff. You even got me talking about Apple in a negative way. Um, Not that they care about me. I don't care about them, clearly. But I love Logic. And this kind of update with Cubase 15 makes me appreciate some things about Logic greatly. One is the price. You're funny, Plastidon. One is the price. And I'm so grateful that I'm not paying that kind of money. Even, I mean, an update, $100, I could pay $100, right? But they want you $580 for a new user, and then $100 each time they do one of these upgrades. That's a lot of money you're going to be spending over the course of a career. The other thing, if I was on Windows, this would be a really good alternative. But I'm also happy with my Mac ecosystem. Like my phone, it's like I can pull up my phone screen on my Mac screen. I can answer calls in both places. Like it's like all this stuff ties together so nicely. Copy and paste works between all of it. I'm never going to Windows. That would be insanity. Cubase doesn't have Apple behind the back. Yeah. Cubase has a big company behind the back, though. Not one that always cares about us. This is a good place to end that before. I mean, Cubase is Steinberg. Yeah. All good comments. I think this is a good place to end the stream. Yeah, Yamaha. It's like I was debating saying it or not. Yamaha's not a small company. They're not as big as Apple, but who is? Thanks everybody for watching. I hope this was informational and exciting. And once Logic comes out with an update, we'll be doing one too where we bash on the new update from Logic or talk about how great it is. I'll be doing both because every time they do something, I like it all. And there's parts that I won't like. But thanks again. I will talk to you all later.